All right, hello. We are live. Welcome to another in a series of Motorsport-Safety Foundation webinars. We're really excited and lucky that the group of speakers we have tonight has decided to utilize our platform and talk about, I won't ruin the surprise, I don't think, but talk about this amazing new document that's been put out, the HPDE Curriculum Guide. Tonight we've got Eric Meyer, who's here. Eric. We've got Chuck Tucker and Chuck Hawks, not to be confused with the other Chuck. And so what we're going to do tonight is these three gentlemen are going to go through and kind of talk about their new document. And part of the reason why we're excited about it from the MSF side is that what they've done is exactly one of the goals that the reason behind the Motorsport Safety Foundation has always been, which is creating resources for our community and for the industry. And so that's why it's just so amazing that these guys decided to launch this product on the MSF webinar series. So with no further ado, I will let them take it away. Please know that we're going to have the chat boxes open and that we'll be monitoring those. If you have any questions, you have the ability to note it as a question. Let us know about that question, and we'll do a Q&A session after the presentation and after everybody talks through this. So thank you very much again, guys. Enjoy yourselves and take it away.
All right.
Outstanding. Everyone, hi, I'm Eric Meyer with Instructor Summit, and also I'm proudly representing the Motorsport Safety Foundation. Underneath me here, at least underneath in mine, in the pretty blue shirt, is my great friend Chuck Tucker, and over here with the other, I guess, light blue shirt, right, is my great friend Chuck Hawks. And before we do some more formal introduction, we're going to do a little bit of presentation in the background. I talked to both Chucks, and they said this would be a great way to start the effort. So let's do that now. It's about 3 minutes long. There's a free download PDF that we're going to talk about after the program. This happens to be the cover that Scott referred to, and we're just going to jump right into it here, except it looks like it's on the last slide. I apologize. Look at that. Okay, that was just a major fail. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Meyer, and I'm a professional slide presentation person. Let's see if we can do this.
That's from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's begin with the end in mind.
That's right. It's awesome.
Well, the first slide, opening slide, and the last slide look the same.
There we are.
This is where we have the music. Let's all go to the lobby.
Okay.
They're like, holy cow, who are these knuckleheads? I'm almost there, fellas and ladies.
Give me the trash can.
All right.
Showing my age.
While we're waiting here, Chuck Hawks, could I get you to introduce Chuck Tucker and then vice versa while we're waiting?
Sure.
So I get to introduce Mr. Tucker first. Wow.
Cool.
So right off, this guy brings monster cred. You just got to know that. He's obviously an experienced in-car instructor and a classroom instructor for HPDEs and things like that. And he coordinates the support of HPD in classroom instructors for both several organizations, such as the Instructor Summit, and actually was instrumental, Ross Bentley and Eric, in getting those first Instructor Summit events off the ground. But not only that, he's a college professor for over 30 years. I mean, we're talking big brain here, mechanical engineering of all things, right? And not just a college professor. He has won pretty much every award that you can win as a teacher, including the campus-wide best instructor at his university. He coaches other professors and instructors on making their communications the best and most efficient they can be. So, you know, you combine all of that, 30 years of that, with the talents that he's got both in the car and in the classroom. His classroom materials for HPDE stuff have been used by multiple organizations all over the place. So very, very prolific and a fantastic guy. I met him at the Indy Instructor Summit last year, and it's been just a great pleasure to work with him on this project and just get to know him better. And I just look forward to working with him more in the future because just I can't say enough good about him. Good
Hey,
stuff.
thanks, Chuck. And right back at you, because one of the real treats of this project has been to work with Chuck Hawks and get to know him. So Chuck's been a pro racer, now retired, but he held the FIA International licenses from IMSA, Grand Am World Challenge, NASA, SCCA Pro license, and so forth. He's been a pro driver for manufacturers. He's still an active pro coach. Chuck has trained every type of driver from teenagers to special forces and everybody in between. And he's been in the HPDE world since as an instructor and classroom teacher sometime like the early 90s. So tremendous body of experience. And in fact, he's sought out by groups all over the country, either to come be their classroom instructor at their event or to come help them design a curriculum. So he just brings this fantastic wealth of driving experience, teaching experience. I think he's got as many hours. He's got almost as many hours in HPDE classrooms as I've got in any kind of classroom.
I don't know about that.
Maybe not, but it's a lot. My personal favorite thing about Chuck is that he is CEO of a company called Teen Driving Solutions. That is a driving school, safety-oriented school for teens. And Teen Driving Solutions for 10 years has had an over 99% success rate. Their graduates, 99% of their graduates go 4 years or more after the school without an incident, without a traffic ticket, without a parking ticket. Incredible success rate there. So, he can really do it. And just a rock star here as in terms of a driving instructor and classroom guy, and a tremendous person to partner with to try to pull together an effort like this. So real joy to work with you, Chuck.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys are important. I got nothing to follow up. Good night, everybody. Let's get started here. Here's the proper program here. Folks that are watching, thank you. I'm Eric Meyer from Instructor Summit and Motorsport-Safety Foundation. I'm on the board with Scott Elkins that you met earlier and Ross Bentley. As I mentioned earlier, both Chuck and Chuck said we should talk a little bit about this backstory that got to the document that you see here. And we all got together and really said the backstory is just as important and possibly even more important than this actual document. So if you could give me about 3 minutes to give you some background, we'll get into the actual document. Approximately 3 years ago, you can see Ross Bentley in the lower right over there. I reside in Indianapolis, and I decided to bring Ross Bentley to an event so that we could share best practices. He could do his great talks. Invited a lot of instructors from all over the community in Indianapolis area and then Ohio and et cetera, et cetera. Met a lot of folks and we said, wow, this was a really neat experience. We had to do another one of these. Actually, Ross said, Eric, we had to do another one of these and we ought to take this show on the road. Well, here's what happened after that. That gentleman in the bright blue shirt holding the microphone right there, he's not a professional DJ. That is Chuck Tucker. And he's a great organizer of events, just as David Dubois, the gentleman in the middle, and John Santiago, also a professional educator as well. So collectively, these three gentlemen, myself and Ross, got together and we did some survey work to ask the industry, what would you like to have presented if we did another instructor summit on a very large scale? Those folks that responded, and there were many from all over the U.S., basically said these things, or they fell into these categories. And I want you to make sure you look at that bright green classroom leaders, because we're going to talk about that one. But they were event organizers. So we had folks that attended this Indianapolis Instructor Summit last year, just before COVID, that were track operators, track managers, track owners, safety folks, promoters of events, nonprofit and nonprofit. The orangey colored one there, we had a lot of HPD students that were not yet instructors that were drew to Ross Bentley and some of the other offerings that I'll tell you about. The blue one, chief driving instructors. pretty much every big organization that's out there sent a representative to Indianapolis, and there was about 40 folks in those categories. That was personally for me one of the neatest things to meet other like-minded folks. Vendors, we had several vendors who wanted to come and be sponsors or partners because they had their target-rich environment and their audience, and that was Toyo Tires and Simpson and Lockton Motorsports and Haggerty Insurance, right? All the big folks, and we thank you for their support. The red circle, just before the green, keep your eye on the green. The red circle is probably the 90% of the audience because everybody was an instructor in addition to a chief driving instructor or an event organizer or a classroom leader. And we're going to get into that right now. That green circle, remember, we did a survey, and that green circle was the number one most requested item to speak on, to talk about, to learn, to listen, to share more. We're going to jump right into that. So here we are in Indianapolis. We've got about 1/4 of the audience here from all over the U.S. There's Ross Bentley on the lower left. Here's an example of a guest panel of several subject matter industry experts. If you're from around the U.S. and you can look real close, you probably recognize 1, 2, or more. We had some wonderful fun and games with the professional racing sim organization there, and everybody made a ton of friends. Guys, it was a super, super community. Now, remember that green circle that we talked about earlier? Yeah? Well, this is what happened, and it was very unplanned. As you can see in this picture here, small groups of various disciplines started getting together. So that orange group started getting together, and the blue group got together, and the green group got together, and things started happening. You see note-taking and folks that had never met each other now collaborating to say, hey, this is kind of neat. That green group is these guys right here, these crazy guys, and those look like adult beverages in a bar, but I could be wrong. I might be guessing that. This is the formation.
That was the holdouts right there.
This is the formation of the document, the early team. And these folks right here were the genesis. It was not planned. A bunch of folks got together with Chuck Tucker's engagement and coordination, and things started to evolve. So let's backtrack. We have a big event. Folks are coming that don't know anyone. They're coming from all over the U.S., and they're meeting other like-minded folks, and they're interacting in small little groups. And here you are in this bar. The educators are all talking together thinking, wouldn't it be great? Without any further ado, I'd like to take you and turn this over to my great friend Chuck Tucker and Chuck Hawks for the introduction of the HPDE Curriculum Guide. Guys, great job. Great job. I'm super excited about this document. Chuck Tucker, what the heck happened way back there at that table when all these strangers were sitting together? This wasn't a plan. This wasn't a product. This was not even a crazy pipe dream. How'd this happen?
Make sure you're unmuted there, Chuck. All right, professional teacher there. As Eric said, we had a survey. We had a good indicator that there were a lot of people interested in classroom instruction coming to Indy last year. And in fact, we'd also actually done a little focus group too with classroom instructors beforehand to try to suss out what did they need in terms of support. I think we had the sense early on that this was kind of a little under-supported group. And so, at the summit, we got people together. We gathered up the classroom instructors and tried to pack as many of them as we could in the room and have some conversation about that. And, I met Chuck Hawks. I think Chuck was out working the crowd at the same time to sweep those people in. And it was really a fascinating conversation. Several things emerged, and one of them was the notion that we needed some help on what to teach. what should we be teaching in the classroom was kind of the original question. But, you know, as soon as we thought about that a little bit, we knew that classroom, in-car, other experiences that your drivers have at your events all fit together. So it has to be that whole picture. You have to think about that whole picture. And so that's what led us to launch the project. Chuck, you want to say a little more about that, buddy?
Well, you know, when you came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in getting engaged in a classroom discussion, I did. I started going out and just polling people out in the audience, and basically it turned into a recruiting mission.
Yeah.
And we ended up with a conference room that was so full, there was what I call a hall race going on. People, it was beyond standing room only. We had people in the hall fighting for position so they could hear better. It was absolutely incredible, the amount of engagement that you attracted just by creating that little seed. And of course, one thing led to another. That conversation just kept getting bigger and bigger. Well, you know, if we're talking about what needs to be in the classroom, well, one of the complaints that we hear a lot is the in-car on-track instructors don't really always know what's going on in the classroom. So how do we connect those two dots? And boy, that just mushroomed into what is now eventually the HPDE Curriculum Guide.
Yeah. Guys, what was what were some of the things you heard from those that said, I'm interested in classroom? Some white examples, because if I remember right, there were about 30 or more folks in a conference table that had about conference room that had, I think, 8 chairs.
Right.
What are some of the things you're hearing? That was our #1 survey vote getter, if I remember right.
You know, people are interested in resources for teaching, slides, and ideas for, ideas of ways to teach things in the classroom and different teaching techniques and different, materials, visual aids, whatever. And there's the really interesting interest in either becoming a classroom instructor or like honing your skills as a classroom instructor. So, you know, that's something that's still on our drawing board to work on, but we're very aware of that. Not only were there 30-some people who were experienced classroom instructors that chimed in, but there were another 30 or more, people who'd been doing on-track instruction who said, hey, I'd really like the chance to try this classroom thing. So, we need some support for those people too. That's out for the future. Yeah. But let's get back to the guide, because what happened here was we heard the need in Indy, and very soon thereafter, I hooked up with Chuck Hawks. He told me he was willing to help lead this. Awesome. And we started building the team of people that actually did the work with us. So can we show them, Eric? Yeah, so here's the gang. Here's the team. Lee Cash has been a racer and kind of hit the sweet spot for HPD instructing. He's a classroom instructor for a group called the Driver's Edge out of Texas. Chuck, do you want to help me introduce these characters?
Sure. April Curtis, who's next, is also a good friend of mine. I've known April for a long time. She has won a national championship in BMW club racing. She's also the co-chief instructor for the Tar Heel chapter BMW CCA with her significant other Paul Tillery, who's also a good friend. She's been a great in-car instructor. She's got classroom as well. She does classrooms for Tar Heel. As well, she also runs the ITS, or instructor training program, for Tar Heel. So just a wealth of experience and really a lot of dedication going on there, and a tremendous amount of interest over a long period of time with April. Just super, super good.
Cool. Yeah, David Du Bois, another person with a lot of history in driving here, has held pro and SCCA licenses, ran in the Playboy and Firehawk Endurance Series some years ago. He's contributed classroom materials that he shared with other people, and he's a classroom instructor for the Empire State Region Ferrari Club and does in-car instruction for them, for Hooked on Driving, for Friday at the Track at Summit Point, and any number of other groups. And if you've ever seen any of David's articles in like Speed Secrets Weekly, you know he is Mr. Preparation. Just a master of keeping good records about tracks and track notes and everything else, and being totally ready when he gets to the track. Great guy to work with.
he's got some really good classroom materials as well. He shared with me and some other people, and they look really good. Next up is Alan Kendall. Holy crap, this guy's a beast. Alan is, I don't even know where to start. He's been driving, instructing, and managing HPDEs since 1973. I didn't even know HPDEs had been around that long. I swear, I think this guy, they built racetracks around him while he was just standing out in some field. But he's also a chief instructor for a CHIN chapter, CHIN Track Days, and he's also an MSF Level 2 instructor and in charge of their instructor training for MSF Level 2 for CHIN. He also holds vintage and club racing licenses, so he's not just in DE.
Cool. And I got to mention Mr. Eric Myers. So I know a lot of you know Eric. What you might not know that he's been a pro racer. He's raced in professionally in Grand Am, World Challenge, and SCCA Pro. And after he had his stint in pro racing, he decided he really wanted to give back to the driving community. So he has been a chief instructor for NASA Great Lakes for some years and has been instrumental in with other people there in building what I think is one of the best HPDE education programs I've ever seen. And he loves to bring people together. As you know, he's the founder of the Instructor Summit. And he also loves to teach people about data. He started the Beginner Data Group on Facebook. He's a board member of the Motorsport-Safety Foundation. And what you may not know about Eric is he's also a professional photographer. And that really cool shot is, I guess, is that an Eric Myers shot, Eric?
Oh, that's my wonderful sister. She has the eye in the family. She's
there you go. There's his sister. Got it. Yeah. So really, really cool, interesting guy, and somebody who just is unmatched in his service to the HPD community. So thanks, Eric.
Teamwork, dreamwork.
There we go. The next guy is Peter Puffer. He's a really interesting guy. He's another one that I met at Indy last year at the Instructor Summit. Peter brings an amazing wealth of knowledge to the table. He's a professional psychologist who develops programs for organizational and specialized training dynamics. So he knows a little bit about communicating with other humans, right? He's a chief diving instructor for the Glacier Lakes Region Audi Club of North America. Let's see, I got some notes on him too because I just met him last year. Let's see, he develops his clubs, his HPDE's curricula. So he's not just a presenter. He does his classrooms as well, but he's not just a presenter. He also creates the curriculum, and he's responsible for their MSF Level 2 instructor training program. And he races in WRL and Champ Car, I believe. So, again, a lot of experience. These guys, a lot of heavy hitters on our team here.
Yep. So John Santiago is another professional educator, professor of college at DuPage. And when I first saw John in the HPDE classroom, I kind of went, wow, this guy is awesome. He is really one of the best classroom instructors I've ever seen. I think people who heard him talk at the summit understood that as well. I think John can teach anything to anybody. He is the HPDE 1 group leader, one of them at NASA Great Lakes, and a key curriculum builder there. So tremendous guy to have on the team.
And last but certainly not least is Patrick Sullivan. I've known Patrick for a long time, or Pat, or Sully. He got any names. He is the co-chief instructor for National Corvette Museum's HPDE program. He started, I think, he's been in HPDEs now for, I think, 15 or 18 years, almost 20 years. And he also has been actively involved in instructor training since 2014. And he brings a different discipline to the table. He's got over 30 years of AMA motorcycle competition under his belt. So, he's still a racer, but he's all about instructing as well. And I love Pat to death. I consider him a really good friend.
Really great, well-rounded team that almost everyone didn't know everyone coming to the table, right? 99% of the folks were new. Absolutely. Chuck Tucker, what are we looking at, my friend?
Hey, we're looking at a slide that Chuck Hawks is supposed to talk about.
That's right. So when you open the guide, the first thing you're going to see on page 1, official page 1, instead of all the little Roman numeral pages that go by and stuff like that, is how to use this guide. So here's the thing. One of our tenets with this guide was not to be a concrete box that everybody has to play within, not to tell everybody how to do their programs. As a matter of fact, several of the people on our team said they would only participate as a part of our team if we did not attempt to put everything in a box and tell everybody how to run their program or what to do. So the guide is really a lot about the what you want to see in a well-run, safe HPDE, and not so much about the how you need to do it. Obviously, we're going to give you some best practices, but we're not going to place you in a concrete box. So the how to use this guide kind of explains if let's say you're standing up a new program, which Eric was telling me the other day that he's got some people out of Texas that called him up and said, we want to start an HPD. We have no idea what we're doing. It's the first time we've ever done it. Help us out, right? So if you're one of those people, this page and a half explains how you can use this guide to actually formulate a curriculum to stand up a program from scratch. If you've already got a program that you think's running well, but there's some opportunities it could do some things better, this also tells you how to take things, in context, and, just like anything else, use what you need and don't use what you don't need. I'll use a Chuck Tucker analogy that's great, and it's actually in the book. If you were going to build a race car, you would not go down to the race car parts store and buy one or more of every single part they have, right? You would get their catalog and go through their catalog and only get, identify the parts that you need for your specific race car and only order those parts. And that's exactly how to use this guide if you're an existing program and how it was designed. And I think it really works well that way. And certainly the feedback that we've gotten from the people who got pre-release copies has been overwhelmingly positive about how they could use it that way.
So what are those parts? Well, I think we got to start with what's a curriculum. And for us, a curriculum means the skills and information that your organization commits to teaching all of its drivers and the plan for accomplishing that. So, particularly if we're doing in-car instruction, if we've got a student who's really getting it quick and they're eager and they want to learn, we'll give them more. That's always going to happen. But the curriculum is the part that you plan that for everybody to learn, and you commit to helping every one of your drivers learn. And so curriculum is also the plan for that. And that has these 4 parts: what they're going to learn, when they learn those things, what's the sequence, who does that, and how you're going to know if they've achieved that. The curriculum guide is awful lot about what, and then, that's the subtitle, what to teach in high performance driver education. And we give you some of the when and a little bit of the how. But we figured that this was a big enough piece to start with, and that's why we started with here. And we express the what using what we call a driver performance outcome. So this is a short description of a skill, and it's described in a way so that you can observe whether your driver's doing that or not. If you're in the car with them, for example, or if you're watching them. So here's just one example. Drivers will be able to begin reducing brake pedal pressure before turn-in and smoothly release the brakes on all turns. So that's the kind of thing that is at the heart of this guide, is a big catalog of these. And we've organized them. There are over 200 of them. It's a big list, but we've organized them in several categories. So first, they're in chapters by kind of skill category: safety, vision, braking, and so forth. And then within each chapter, some of the chapters have sections, but then within each section, we break it down by driver skill level. So are you an initial driver that's just starting out, needs an instructor? Are you a developing driver that's got some skills and you're refining them? Are you a very accomplished driver? And we also kind of slice them differently and say, what's a fundamental skill that's just really core to all good driving or core to safety? What's more of a core, but pre-competitive core skill that's non-competitive, that's about driving quickly on the track, but not particularly oriented towards competition. And then what are what we call pre-competitive skills, which are skills you would want to be learning if you are on your way to, say, a racing school and you think you want to go racing or do competitive driving in some form. So things are kind of, we tried to organize them and categorize them so that as you read through the list, you can say, oh, that one fits my organizational goals. This one, not so much, so I don't have to worry about it. We try to keep them organized in that way.
And that's the thing. We wanted to keep it broad enough because we understand that different HPDE organizations have different goals, right? Some are like I'm chief instructor for Southeast Region Ferrari Club, and they're very social. They want to come and drive their cars and hang out. I mean, it's funny. This is one of the groups that I play with. It's kind of unique in this way. You can go up to them, your group's out right now. Yeah, I think I'm going to sit this one out, right? It's just as important to them to have the social interaction with one another because they don't get to see each other all that often, except at these events, as it is to get out and play with their cars and learn something, right? Then there's other organizations like typical BMW club, right? That it's really based in education. You come there to get better at the skills that you have. And then there are other groups, say NASA, for instance, that kind of their mission is to groom people up in skill level to eventually go wheel-to-wheel competition, right? So there's a lot of places in between, and we really wanted to tick all of those boxes for anybody who's in any of those categories, and that's where these skill levels came from.
Right.
So to kind of give you an example of what we're talking about, Eric, if you'll jump forward here, hopefully you can read this. My screen is it's a small screen, and it's like 6 feet away, so I can't read it. But I've got another screen right here. So I'm going to walk you through just a little bit of what we're talking about. So one of the biggest things that we work on as an instructor is getting our students' vision skills up and out and, proper, right? As a matter of fact, Eric, the survey that you did, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago out on Facebook, wasn't vision like the number one thing that everybody identified that people need to work on?
The number one HPDE novice driver most common problem was vision. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
So a perfect example here around, vision skills. So as we look at this, I'm not going to read the whole thing or anything like that, but I am going to scan through it, and I'm going to do it on my little smaller screen where I can see a little bit more what's going on here. All right. So vision is basically, it's the primary skill you need, right? Everything else kind of depends on it if it's not the most fundamental skill for driving quickly driving in general in any situation, right? I teach my teens about vision. So if we look at the first area, visual reference points that is on this page, the goal is simple: drive smooth and consistent, right? So how do we measure that? It's different for each driver's experience level. So if we start off with that basic driver,
so you're seeing something interesting here. That's with the initial. Could you explain that to the folks that are seeing this for the first time? Haven't gotten the free download yet? That sound like
the initial driver, driver skill category is basically people who've had no to just maybe 1 or 2 track events. They're really new to this. They've just dipped their toe in the water, and they're still just learning how the logistics work and all that kind of stuff, right? So at that initial level, their performance outcomes would be as follows. And if you look at number 78 there, the book identifies it as foundational. So that's the F in the parentheses. It's a foundational skill. So number 78, let me grab my book here. I want to read actually exactly what 78 says. I don't want to misquote it because it's good stuff. So recognize visually where reference points and other relevant landmarks are both on and near the track, and know what turn they are approaching. So they're starting to get the idea of what turn comes next. They're getting some memorization skills, but mainly they're looking for visual reference points. They're starting to identify visual reference points, right? So if you look at number 79, the next one down, still in the initial group, spend most of their time looking well ahead of the car along the desired line. Again, this is an F. This is foundational. We see this F category, foundational, really being, it needs to exist in every HPDE program out there. That's the fundamentals that are foundational, that we see those as really being fundamentals, and every program that has an educational bent to their program really should be covering those. So now let's see how that compares to, say, the next group down, the developing group. So that's the core group that Chuck was talking about. So in the developing group, they're relatively experienced. They've got some track events under their belt. They know how the events work. They've got some skills under their, in their pocket, and they're starting to put things together, but they still got a lot to learn. So if we look at number 82 there, if you can read it on your screen, before reaching each reference point, braking, turn in, etc., move visual focus to the next reference point and beyond, maintaining awareness of the first point using their peripheral vision. And you'll notice there's a C in the parentheses there. That means that is a core skill, right? The C means we see this as that non-competitive driver. They're not at that advanced or accomplished level yet, and they're still working on those things. And that C is not necessarily fundamental. So it takes a little bit to get there. So you're going to be in a little bit higher run group. And the one thing we were really adamant about is these categories are not meant to identify run groups. Every HPDE out there has a different number of run groups, and they have a different definition of what those run groups are, like novice, intermediate, advanced, super advanced, whatever your run. It's up to you to figure out how you want to divide these over those run groups. If we jump down a little bit further to the accomplished, so these are the guys who they've had a lot of, they're probably soloed, they're in the highest run group, that kind of stuff. So number 84, adjust their choice of visual reference points when they change focus from one to the next in order to drive the track faster and safer. And that's a P. P means pre-competitive. So they may not be taking these skills into competition, but these skills can benefit them if they are going into competition, right? How many people that you're out there watching this, you know that they could drive, they're just as fast as those guys that race, but they just have no interest in racing. This fits them too, right? So they are able to change focus from one visual reference point to the next, but they're not just driving from point to point anymore. They are strategically looking for visual reference points that will make them faster and keep them safe while doing so. So that's just an example of vision and situational awareness. That's just one page out of this stuff.
So question for you, Chuck Hawks. The whole book is laid out in the form of initial, developing, accomplished, as in never been on track, first time on track, got some experience, might be partially solo, and somebody who's got some days under him. Right. And that's probably going to be in the more advanced run groups. Could be a split. I know some have 4 run groups, and their third run group up is actually pretty advanced, right? And some HPDEs have just 3 or whatever, but those people are going to be accomplished. Those are the ones that are most likely soloed off, or maybe even instructor candidates, or they're interested in becoming an instructor. Chuck Tucker, there was if I remember right, very early on, we don't want to have 3 or 4 defined groups for everyone, because not everybody has 3 or 4 defined run groups, right?
Yeah. So this initial, developing, accomplished categories, please do not think of them as run groups, as Chuck Hawks has said. Your run group, your novice run group might only do part of the initial goals. Somebody else's novice run group might do all of them. Just depends on your program and where you want to draw the lines between what you want your drivers to know before you move them to the next run group. So if we could move ahead, let's talk a little bit about a different skill. So here's a little piece of the section on braking. And again, and this is even just about brake modulation and release. There's some other goals about initial brake application and braking points and so forth. But, important things here, again, you see the different driver levels. You see some of these things have Fs because they're fundamental, and others are C because they're core driving skills. But, we start with number 168, begin reducing brake pedal pressure before turn in and smoothly release the brakes on all turns. So we think that's fundamental. But, 169, complete a smooth release of the brakes after turn in for turns where appropriate. Now we're getting into trail braking. Do you like that? Do you want that in your curriculum? I think it's a good thing, but maybe you don't. Okay, fine. The whole guide is a la carte. You take the parts you want to use and you leave the parts you don't want to have in your program. That's fine. So, we've got some other goals there for initial. If we go down to developing, 172, release the brakes gradually with some release beyond turn in. And now we're talking about as needed to help the car turn in and utilize more of the car's grip. So now we're shifting from more instructor supported to more driver judgment, and the driver's developing their judgment about exactly when and how to release the brakes and how much to trail off. Then if you look down to 173 in the accomplished, use trail braking in slower, tighter turns to adjust speed and promote car rotation on corner entry. So now we've amped it up again, clicked it up again to actually actively using the trail braking to rotate the car, not just get a little more weight on the front to help it turn, but go and point it to the apex. And, all the way down to 176, using left foot braking and overlapping throttle input to help balance the car. So the point I want to make here is that, this is everything from what a first timer needs to start with to what a driver needs to develop to become very highly accomplished and be ready to do anything and to drive in anybody's advanced group. And, I think this offers a lot of good opportunities. So if you're an in-car instructor, even if you're not a classroom instructor, I know in my own in-car experience, I've had moments where I've had a driver who's getting it very quickly and they're learning quickly and their skills coming up quickly. And I'm going, I'm not sure I'm going to teach them next. Well, here's a rich pool of resource of what to teach them next. And, secretly, maybe what to learn next yourself. That's true for me. If you're even if you're just an eager driver and you want to learn more about driving, I think this could be a good resource to kind of check off where your own skills are, and it would give you a good to-do list of things to be working on next and things to talk to your in-car instructor about.
Chuck Tucker, there's a great question that just popped up as your attention here.
Yeah.
It's from Mark. Thank you, Mark. Please elaborate on the difference between fundamental F and C core. Could you help us there?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Sure enough. So as we categorize these, fundamentals are things you need to do to be able to drive the track competently and safely. And they're really focused on that. And they're not very focused on performance. Of course, you have to be driving fast enough that the car is dynamic and, it's an interesting drive. But if you only did the fundamentals, I think you would be able to drive safely in a student run group, maybe with a student, maybe with an instructor or not. But it's that core of safe and competent track driving. Core is a core non-competitive, and this is more the spirit of performance driving. This is starting to get more out of the car. This is getting a lot of the capability out of the car, starting to edge up close to the limit of what it can do, and building up the limit of what the driver can do. And I think this is, for me, this is sort of the heart of a lot of HPDE groups, is where they sit. So, Mark, I hope that helps you.
I'm going to go to the next slide. I've just noticed Christian, pre-comp driver here, as in pre-competition school. This is like getting the exam before the course starts, and will set the bar for the HPD's I-10. Use as my own reference also. Exactly what it was designed for.
Perfect. Awesome, Christian. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
We've got a new document here, guys. What are we looking at?
All right, so this is back in our first appendix. We've got 3 different examples. As a classroom instructor myself and a consultant for a lot of organizations out there, I often get asked, How do we connect what's going on in the classroom with what's going on in track and vice versa, right? Because there often is a disconnect. A lot of times the in-car or on-track instructors in these lead follow days, they don't have the time or sometimes the desire to come and sit in the classroom with their students. So they don't know what's being talked about in there. So how do we connect those dots, right? This is an example of how to do that. So there are 3 different examples in here that you can use 3 different ways. But if we look at this one, and if you're looking on the screen there, we've got goals for the weekend: be safe, learn something, have fun. How many times have you heard that, right? That's pretty much the goal for every HPDE I know out there. We got familiarization laps, which a lot of HPDEs do. In this particular case, and recognize these examples are literally taken from active programs. These are ongoing programs. We didn't make these up. We had our team contribute these. So in this particular situation, we got helmets on, instructors in the car, except we're going touring speeds and no passing. So it's basically game on at low enough speeds that the student can start to see what they're supposed to be looking for. They can start to connect dots, and they don't have to worry about traffic or the stress thereof. We're talking about car control basics, hands at 9 and 3, eyes well ahead of the car, smooth inputs, put it in one gear and stay in one gear around the track so you don't have to worry about shifting if you've got a third pedal in the car, that kind of stuff. So all of these things, this is a layout. So you could use this document in several different ways. Number one, if you're a classroom instructor and you've been asked by a DE organization to come provide classroom, and let's say you just started doing classroom. So you're like, what do I do? Where do I start? What do I need to teach? This gives you a great outline to follow to say, well, okay, here I go. This is an outline of what I'm going to teach in the classroom, and it even gives me some of the stuff to do. If you're an experienced classroom instructor, this still gives you ideas. Oh, I've never thought about teaching that in the classroom at this level, so you can use it that way. Other opportunities here. A lot of times, a DE group, they're still attempting to figure out that disconnect between on-track and in the classroom. Well, if you're an in-classroom instructor, if you hand the on-track instructors an outline of what you're going to teach out in the classroom, here's what I'm going to talk about in the first session. When they come see me the first session, this is what I'm going to talk about. Here's what I'm going to talk about the second session. So now all of a sudden, the on-track instructors can start supporting what's happening in the classroom. And if they've got questions about it ahead of time, they can come to the classroom instructor and get that ironed out and maybe bring up some things that the classroom instructor can talk about that maybe they didn't have on their agenda. So now we've got some conversation happening, right? And then lastly, you can use this to build a handout to give the students either ahead of time or in their packet. So when they arrive at the event, they know what to expect. And now they can start thinking about questions to ask based on what they're going to get in each individual classroom. So very, very powerful documents. And again, there's not just one, but 3 examples of these in this section in the appendix there.
Yeah, so let me just give you a very quick look at another one of the examples. And I just want to point out a couple of things about this. One is that this is for an intermediate classroom session, so it's not just for the beginner stuff. The second one is that if you look at this carefully, you'll notice that this is for a school that's where the instruction is on track is lead follow. So I saw some questions in the chat about lead follow. I think we had that in mind as we wrote these performance outcomes, but lead follow was part of the how you teach, and we were really boring in on the what to teach. But there's at least some ideas here in lead follow, and there's other places for other resources for that. I think we can maybe connect afterwards if you're more interested in those. You'll also see, really useful things that give you a sense of how long these classroom sessions go. And this handout even goes into how much time the classroom instructor is allowing to get the drivers in and out of the classroom. So a lot of good resources here, and in this case, multiple examples, as Chuck said, staying with our theme of we want to give you a lot of good ideas and best practices and let you draw from it and build the program you want to have for your organization. Okay.
So bumping up against time here, switching over.
This is one of my favorite slides.
Why is that? Tell us.
Oh, you're giving me the ball? Oh, I was going to give you back the ball.
You go with it, Eric.
The red is the team of 10. And the team of 10 are 3 of them are represented in these little squares, and the other 7 were introduced earlier, and there are some fantastic professionals. Those blue folks are the folks that reviewed and provided testimonials for the program, and I love the fact that it's well represented across the entire U.S. Chuck Tucker, you got to meet a lot of new folks in various professional disciplines during the review process. Anything stick out to you in particular that you'd like to share?
Well, I think so. Not only did these these 10 folks we talked about at the top work hard on the guide, but we sent this out then to very well respected people, other very well respected people in the HPDE world who had not been involved, and said, please read this. Tell us if we're off base anywhere. Tell us where the gaps are. And those folks, very generously donated their time and gave us good ideas. And we made changes in the document in response to every single reviewer we got at that initial review stage. But we were also really gratified for people to come back and say, okay, this is good. We like this. This is solid. I think this is going to help a lot of different organizations. So I'm really encouraged by that. And I'm excited for this guide to get loose in the wild now so that everybody on the webinar here can have a look at it and see how it works for them. And one thing I'll add is I know a bunch of you have been on the chat about the webpage where you download the guide. If you patiently scroll all the way to the very bottom of that page, you'll find a contact us or comment box where you can send us your ideas, send us your impressions. We have always, from the beginning, conceived of this as a document that was going to be living, that we would update pretty regularly. So if you say, oh man, this outcome number 56 is just wrong, or it misses something important, we need a 56A, or if you want to tell us, something else you need, a similar tool you need to help you make your program great, go to that same web page, give us those comments, and we would love to have them, and we are going to do our best to use them to improve this future editions of this guide, make them even better. And if there are other resources we can identify, we're willing to take a shot at gathering teams and people that can produce similar tools for those needs.
This is for both the Chucks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the initial design was to make a framework so that the community could contribute to, and this could grow and improve and change and modify as the times change as well. Is that correct? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We kind of built it as this guide itself is sort of, we call it hub and spoke. It's the hub, it's in the center, and eventually we see spokes coming out for like data, right? How to use data in the classroom, how to use data as a measuring tool for your students to see where they are performance-wise. We don't get too much into data right now because we needed to focus on the core of the book, but we see spokes coming out for individual things like that as the book evolves over time.
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening and like what you're hearing, Chuck Tucker mentioned at the bottom of the Instructor Summit page that has the links at the very bottom. If you'd like to get involved, if you'd like to get engaged, if this is right up your alley, please let us know. We're looking for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
The final closing thoughts and that Scott was going to jump in and guide us through the program here.
Thanks, guys. That's what a compelling document. And I think I've seen a couple of different comments tonight. You've luckily been paying attention and picked up on most all the questions. So well done on that side of it, on your point there, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that's come up is that there's one good comment that said, look, if we're all teaching the same thing, how does this specialize us? And I think the answer that came up from one of the comments in there was like to describe it as this is a catalog not necessarily a direction.
Mm-hmm.
So go inside there and reach in and pull some of the things you want out of it and utilize those. And you still got all kinds of different ideas and different things to make your own club and your own organization very specific to how you do it. So I thought that was a really good point. The other thing that's coming up, and I'll note it to everyone here and the presenters, you go to the Instructor Summit page. We've tagged it at the very top of the comments. So if you go up there, you can see the link. Yes, it does ask you for your email address because, as you've all heard, a bunch of people put a lot of work into this. So they're trying to develop a database so that we can keep in touch with everybody. So you just provide your email address and you download it for free. That's kind of the way it goes and the way it works. But a lot of people thought there was an automatic link where you got it automatically, but we've provided the link for you so you can go there and get to it. I don't know anything else to talk about, guys. We're hitting the top of the hour. You guys have covered everything. It's a spectacular document, and it's something that the industry, everybody's comments were like, "Look, this is something we've needed for a long time." So it really gives you an opportunity to hop in there. The fact that you guys have covered lead follow is very timely for the world that we're living in. As we all know, everybody's asking about lead follow, so that's a big deal and that's a big point. So, Chuck, Eric, you guys did a fantastic job. What an amazing webinar. Just so you know, this webinar, just like all the other MSF webinar series, will be posted on the motorsport-safety.org website and for replay. It'll take us a couple of days to process the video and get it up there, but if you didn't see it or your friends didn't get a chance to see it or you want to pass it on to somebody else, it'll be available up there and you can pop on it. It'll be a YouTube link where you can take a look at it. So
cool.
Parting thoughts before we leave, and that would be this. If you enjoyed the program, if you go to that same page that Chuck Tucker just said, go to the bottom and there's a comment section. Well, if you go to the top, there's a link to the next webinar for the same exact subject, which is on the 21st. But
we're going into a little bit deeper dive. It's not an introduction. We're not just showing you, wetting your whistle, so to speak.
Yep.
Chuck Tucker, I understand you can get this book on Amazon.
Yes, indeed. So if you like the print version, if you want to be able to hold that in your hand, Amazon.com. And, unfortunately, we're not making any money on this. So
that's not true. We make like $1.70. Let's full disclosure here. Isn't it $1.68?
That's what it was.
There you go. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we're going to cover costs, but everybody involved here did this pro bono, did it as a service to the community, including our photographers, Jeremy Briner of Downforce Media, Zachary Rakovan, ABI Photography, Brian Kellett, who was the graphic designer, did the cover. Everybody's chipped in. All these guys are drivers or love driving and participate in motorsports. And so this is a real community effort. And it's just been, wonderful to work with this team. Everybody was very generous and just said, yeah, let's do it. It's going to be good for everybody. And we hope it'll be good for each of you.
And the way Chuck Tucker set us up on Amazon, the really cool thing is as this document does evolve, as the revisions come out, it's kind of a print on demand system. So if you order a printed copy today and then we make a revision, if you go order another printed copy later, you're going to get the latest version every time you click order.
Sure.
So that's really cool. There's no waiting around for stuff to happen. Really, really cool thing.
Yep. All right.
Scott, thanks for having Instructor Summit on. We look forward to posting this information on your resources page, sir.
Really appreciate it, Scott.
It's like we said, guys, this is what it's about, right? We're all trying to create resources and make the community stronger and provide better things for the community because we all love it so much. So that's the whole point. So it only made sense. Thank you guys for choosing this to launch your product. It's really killer.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for showing up.
Everybody for being here.
See you on the 21st.
All right.
Bye now.